I am Reverend Irene Smith, and I'd like to welcome you to Generationally Speaking. Here at the table, we come and we discuss life issues, no matter what they might be. As we sit at the table with each generation, we all learn, we all grow, we all are inspired.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Generationally Speaking.
Hello and welcome. I'm Reverend Irene Smith, and welcome to Generationally Speaking, where all the generations of all ages and social and economic backgrounds and whatever it might be, we come to the table and we share with each other where we learn and we grow. I am always excited to welcome my co-host, Pastor Shamika Latte Oliver. You know that she is the founder of Women Who Lead Connect, and I'm excited about all that she's doing. They just launched a new book, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that. Pastor Shamika, tell us about that new book.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Reverend Smith, for just being just amazing as you are. I'm super excited about this book anthology, which is called Uncommon Woman. God uses uncommon women to do extraordinary things. And so it is based off the stories of 10 women who are sharing their stories about how God just used their ordinary self, right? But did extraordinary things, with them. When people counted them out, when situations counted them out, God still counted them in. And so I'm super excited about this. The book launch is coming in a couple of months. And so we are super excited about this, and just to allow their voice to just reach the hearts of other women, who will reach the hearts of other families, generationally speaking, right? To change the lives of those who they are connected with.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, my other co-host is Minister James Durham, that Cowboy fan. He's not with us today, but trust me, he'll be with us real soon. So we're excited about what God is doing in his life. I am excited today to have with me Miss Jeanna Pryor. This young woman, she has married faith and finances and canceled out fear. Did you hear me? She's married faith and finances and canceled out fear. So I'm excited to have Sister Jeanna Pryor with me today. Welcome, Sister Pryor.
Thank you so much, Reverend Smith. I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, and so today, for the next couple of shows, we're going to be talking about fear, faith, and finances. And if you have faith, then fear is gone. But we got to get these finances straight. And I know a lot of times in the church, sometimes we're reluctant to talk about money. I don't know what the taboo is about money, but man, we don't like to talk about money. We talk about everything else but money, but we're going to talk about money. And I pulled up 1 Timothy 6:10, and let me read it to you. It says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil." For the love of money. It didn't say you couldn't have money. It said for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. So today, I want to talk with Sister Pryor, who has dedicated her life to teaching finances. And I want to ask her, first of all, to share with us her formative years of her parents and her community, how that impacted on this career path, or the career path at that time that she had. How did your family and your community impact on your life, Sister Pryor?
Well, I grew up in a very close-knit community. The majority of our families were 3 blocks, and I grew up in Miami, Florida. And my mom called the area the bottom. Because we were bounded by a railroad track, and the families just worked together. They were young. Most of them were first-time college graduates and coming into Miami for job opportunities. So we had a variety of skill sets in our community. Our high school, junior high school were all connected together, and it was within walking distance. Our elementary school was right down the street. I walked there as well. And we just had our instructors were young professionals, just graduating out of college, full of vision. And they just shared with us and poured into us the opportunities and the potential that we had. When it came to finances, we were in the upper middle class in our neighborhood. My father came from a rather wealthy family, but during the Depression, they lost almost everything they had. And so with that, we just learned about how to manage money very well. My grandfather was very influential in his community, as well as my grandmother, very respected in Gainesville, Florida. And they taught me some of the principles of managing money as well.
Wow. Hearing that, this close-knit community and first-time college graduates coming together in this place called the Bottom. And you said why it was called the Bottom, but to know that you all as young children were then being infused with information from these first-time college graduates and with expectations. And do you remember any of those expectations from your family?
Yes, one of the most important things was that each and every one of us was expected to excel in school, as well as pay back to our community and get a college education or have a career. So that was very, very important. The importance of how we carried ourselves in all environments, how we spoke to one another with respect and honor to our parents was really important as well. But they just planted in us a vision. I remember my kindergarten teacher. Now, this was in 1962, and I'm dating myself for sure. But my kindergarten teacher taught us Spanish because she said by the time we finished high school and definitely by the time we were in college, it was important that we understood Spanish because of the dynamics of what she saw in the United States shifting. Now, how that's a vision, and now we're living it.
That is so true. And for her to see that, how important it was for you all to be bilingual. And even today, it's even more important that we become bilingual. So tell me, how did you first become interested in finances?
Well, as I was sharing with you, my grandmother, whom I didn't get a chance to know, but I learned a lot about her, was an entrepreneur. She owned a beauty salon. She owned a bar and club. She owned lots of homes. So she was a very, very wealthy individual. In fact, when she passed away, she left homes to each and every one of her children, all four of them. And she owned, she grew up in Merritt Island, Florida, and she owned orange groves, which was a huge crop at that time. But as I said, she went through a period and they lost all of it. And from that, I started looking at and hearing those stories, the importance of building a business, the importance of passing on generational wealth, the importance of managing money well. So that's how I got started. I remember very clearly growing up saying, by the time I'm in my 30s, this is where I want to be financially. This is what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to have a certain income level. I want to have this much in investments. And that was at a time I had no idea of what investments were, but I knew that I wanted to be intentional about the money that I earned and the blessings I received.
Wow, how wonderful it was to have your grandmother, be such a great example of being an entrepreneur and then saving and being able to pass on her wealth to the next generation. Pastor Shamika, did you have anything you want to add before I ask that next question?
Well, actually, my next question probably be something that you were thinking of also, because with having, that idea on the inside that this was who you wanted to become and what you wanted to do, like, how did you, it seemed like that was faith speaking, right? You didn't necessarily see it. You didn't know much about it, but it was something that was on the inside that sparked something in you from the entrepreneur that your grandmother was at the same time with finances. So how did you merge faith and finances and prayer and finances and just responsibility in finances?
I would tell you honestly, it was just the move of God, because I did not grow up in a home where we had faith, where we attended church. My aunt was the one who was a catalyst for me as far as my faith journey. When I would visit her during the summer, she was a secretary at one of the larger Baptist churches. And it was going to church with her that I just felt in my spirit there was something greater. I remember very clearly at 11 years old, looking up in the sky one night and praying to the Lord, saying, I don't really know who you are, but I know there's someone or something greater than me. Guide me in my life's journey. And along the way, I then started understanding what faith was, what the scriptures were. And it was my college professor that sat me down one day. He says, you're just searching for all kinds of things, and let me just give you the core of what you need. And he was the one that introduced me to Christ. And from there, my journey really, really began, because I was just searching. I knew there was something more. I just didn't know what that more was.
Now that you have an opportunity to look back and you think about your grandmother, did you see that faith in her?
I didn't get to know my grandmother. She died way before I was even born. And I only remember and this is on my father's side. I only remember seeing my grandfather on my father's side 2 times before he passed away. So my influences, as far as my grandparents, were my mom's parents. And they were very inventive. My grandmother was very frugal as far as the funds that she had, having a large family, managing it very, very well. The way they carried themselves, the way they conducted business, very well known in the community in Gainesville, Florida. That was an influence on me as well.
So when you think about responsibility and faith, we hear a lot about, just trust God. Just trust God. Pray and just trust God. But what is the responsibility part of that, of faith and trust in God?
Faith without works is dead. So there are over 800 scriptures in the Bible discussing money. And when we take those in totality, we can learn a lot regarding the gifts, the financial gifts, the responsibility of stewardship that comes into play. Whether it's the scripture regarding the tithe or leaving an inheritance to your children's children's children, is truly, truly important. So it's not a matter of just trust. You have to have, and in fact, when you go through scripture and adding others, like, have a vision. What are you planning to do with the resources he's giving you, with the gifts and talents that he gives you? It's just not just we're walking blindly. I mean, even if you're managing the money he gives you, he expects you to have a plan on how you're going to use those gifts. And if you're using them properly, he's going to give you increase. But if you're not a good steward of that which he gives you, how can we then expect him to give us more? So when we're looking at walking by faith, faith requires us also to do and to act and to plan and to manage that which we are given. Not just for our money, but in everything God gives us, the ownership that we have and the responsibility of how we care for that which we have.
Yeah, that brings me, I guess.
Go ahead.
Now, I was just thinking, just even with that, I know just you as being, a believer and everything. I'm looking at it at 2 perspectives now, like with you now bringing finances to the church. And then what is it like bringing finances to the church, but then also bringing finances to the world or outside of the church at the same time? Like, what's your passion to do both? Do you do both? And when you do both, like, how do you do both? How do you articulate what you want to reach the hearts of those that you're teaching?
There isn't a difference in whether I'm speaking to members of a church or whether I'm speaking to a community group, a sorority, a group of government employees. There is no difference. My heart, my passion is the same. The foundations of managing money are the same. What I have seen in our community as far as how we use the financial resources we have has been the same. For example, if I'm talking about credit and how much we are, as far as individuals, how much we consume in credit, the facts are the same. If you're like, for example, I just did a workshop on Tuesday and Thursday, and I was just sharing with individuals, and one of the groups was a church focused, and the other was outside of the church. But the presentation was the same because we're dealing with the same issues when it comes to our household. Looking especially in the African American community, we have $1.4 trillion of spending power in our community. If we were a nation, we would be the 15th wealthiest nation in the world. And yet in our community, we're only giving back about 3% of that. So when we're looking at from that perspective, we're transferring our wealth into other communities, into other purchases that we're making when it comes from a consumer perspective. So it doesn't matter if it's a member of a church that's in that doing that, or our community, it's the same message. And that's what I want to communicate, that as good stewards of the finances we have and we've been given, we have a responsibility to not incur debt, that we're to leave an inheritance to our children's children. Managing the money is very, very important.
Well, just to back up a little bit, I know you wrote a book titled "Every Penny Counts: How to Become a Middle Class Millionaire." What was the catalyst for writing that book?
The book was written out of my own experience. I wanted individuals to understand that most individuals look at the income that they're earning from a paycheck to paycheck or month to month. What I want individuals to see is how much do you earn over your lifetime? I call that your personal economic potential. So an individual who earns $100,000 a year, whether it's an individual or a household, on average over a working lifetime, that's $3.5 million an individual has had access to. So what are we doing with those dollars? If we look at it from a paycheck to paycheck basis, now we're just looking at paying bills. But if we look at it over our lifetime, now we see our wealth potential. So what I'm doing in the book, and I'm in the process of writing a second book, is helping us to start opening our eyes to see our potential earning power and what are we doing with those dollars, the decisions that we make. I emphasize to individuals that I teach, it's not a matter of saying you can't have this or you can't have that. It's how you pay for the things that you have. So I teach the 4 wealth building buckets. One is life insurance, personal investments, retirement investing, and real estate. And given that same scenario, if an individual is earning that $3.5 million over their lifetime, if they're managing that from that perspective, they can expect to retire with $4 to $5 million. Now, that's leaving an inheritance. And that's also knowing then that you're growing your money along the way. I go back to what I was just saying about the $1.4 trillion. Merchandisers know that we have that potential. And so they market us with that understanding. If we don't have that same perspective and understanding of our wealth, it's easy to transfer that wealth to someone else and not leave an inheritance to our children or our grandchildren.
That is so true. I have some work going on at my house, so I have to put myself on mute so you don't hear all the noise that's coming forward. Mm-hmm. But that book, how to every penny counts. And when you gave us another lens of looking at our finances, instead of, sometimes we can be focused on paycheck to paycheck and month to month, and not, as when you put it in the broader picture, the amount of money that we earn over a lifetime, it makes you sit back and say, wow.
Mhm.
And so then it makes us begin to think about, okay, where am I wasting money, or where am I not investing my money where I need to have it to be?
Mhm.
So when you wrote that book, Every Penny Counts, what were the life lessons that you had learned to put this in a book?
Well, I will boil them down to three things. First of all, you have to have a vision for where you want to go. It's like when you're getting in your car to go to work. You know your destination. You don't know always that you're going to go the same route to get there. There may be detours along the way. There may be roadblocks. There may be, you know, where you're looking at there are changes along the way because of traffic patterns. You don't know all of that, but you do know your destination. So along the way, when you're getting started, first, what do you want to achieve? And that's where that wealth mindset comes from to start out with. Where do you want to be? So once you know your destination, now how do you plan your route to get there? So that's the second. As I shared with you, the 4 wealth buckets. How am I going to use each of these to build towards getting to my destination? And then the third is you have to deny yourself some things. You cannot spend everything that you make. The fact that you now use those buckets to build that wealth, and you come from a perspective of, I'm going to pay myself forward so that I can reach this destination. That is the key to being able to acquire wealth. But in the journey, it's not that you can't have things, it's how you manage those, how you pay for those makes a huge difference in wealth generation.
Wow. Pastor Shamika, hearing all of that, what are your thoughts about how we view wealth?
Well, the scripture came to mind, and I wanted Ms. Pryor to just give me her thoughts on this scripture, which is the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the just. Like, how do we apply this to those who are in middle class? You know, their mindset, towards it, or even teaching children, or even teaching anyone. What would you say when it comes to, that scripture? What I want to know your thoughts about it, and how do we grasp that, but also get that wealth?
First and foremost, it's important that we are intentional about our journey and what we're teaching. If we're not mindful what we're teaching and could be teaching our children, because more often than not, our children are going to learn by what we do, not as much by what we say. So if we are constantly buying, using credit, consume, then that's what we're then transferring and teaching our children. I look at the example now that we have with our grandchildren. As we give them monies, we introduce them to being owners of companies, not just consumers of their goods. We tell them about investing. In fact, one of the things we did last year, because we didn't go on vacation, we gave each of our children and our grandchildren the monies that we would have spent on our family vacation, and said, we want you to open an investment account. And then later on, we said, we want you to go ahead and find out more about Bitcoins. We don't know what the future holds for that, but if you start out now, by the time you're in your 20s, then that might be quite a lot for you as far as wealth building. So when we're talking about money, the language we have about money is very, very important. For example, I had a client just last week. We were talking about the number of credit cards that she had. And I said, well, what were you taught when you were growing up about money? She said, well, we didn't have to worry about anything. My parents always taught us to pay our bills on time, that if you want something, as long as you had a good credit score, you can buy it on credit and pay for it later. I said to her, that was the foundation of what you learned as a child. And now as a result of that, now you have 12 credit cards with high balances and you're paying for them on a monthly basis. You said you're a shoppanista. Well, one of the reasons for that is what you were taught as a child. So in light of that, we have to look at those lessons we're teaching by our actions. And it makes a huge difference when it comes to managing the financial resources that we have. In looking at credit card debt, most individuals don't realize that on average, they could be paying anywhere from 45 to 97% interest on a credit card bill when they're paying every month. If we help them just tweak it a little and transform how they pay for things by planning for things that they're purchasing, now a $30 purchase is $30. Instead of, I'm going to pay a little bit every month, so a $30 purchase now costs me $100. So these are the concepts that are really, really important when it comes to that. As long as we're continuing to be consumers, we're continuing to be debtors. We're continuing to do, from the scripture perspective, we are the debtor, not the lender. And that's what's important to me, to teach those concepts in our day-to-day, how we think about money, how we spend our money, how we plan for the money that we are making.
Yes, scripture tells us as debtors, we are enslaved to the lender. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be careful about that. And, Pastor Shamika, you brought up a passage of scripture that I've heard used quite a bit growing up and along the way. That is the wealth of the wicked are laid up for the righteous. So Sister Pryor, people say, well, when I hit the number, when I win the lottery, that's the wealth of the wicked laid up for the righteous. But talk to me a little bit about that windfall, because sometimes people spend their lives waiting for a windfall. Sometimes people go to the casinos waiting for expecting a windfall. Sometimes people, I've known people to have won the lottery, only to find them some years later broke. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Again, it goes to the foundation. When you look at statistics of those who gamble, those who pay the lottery, those that go to the casino, those are the individuals who can least afford it. When I do my teaching, and my concept is, I want to give individuals guarantees. Guarantee that if you're investing this is the expected rate of return. For example, I'm in the process of getting ready today to record. One of the first foundations of wealth creation is life insurance protection. And one of the things I was thinking today is almost every individual parent has the opportunity to transfer at least $1 million each to their children, guaranteed, through life insurance protection. By getting these policies very, very early on, that wealth that's generated through these policies can be used to purchase homes,